welcome to the second episode this season of the Bella Grace podcast. We are helping you thrive. And what did I say? See, it's going to be a few episodes before I get this right. What did I say? I said, helping you,
mind, spirit, and body.
Yes.
Right? That's right.
Oh my goodness, guys. I will figure it out before the next episode. Anyway, the Bella Grace podcast, where we're helping you improve your life and heal your mind, body, and soul. Something to that effect. We're just trying to help you build a really great life that you love living.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
That's our goal and that's our purpose.
Yes.
And that's what we want to do.
Yeah, because Rosie and I have both been through so much. Like, we have
so much.
Both been through
a lot.
Yeah. Like, I don't think I've ever told my entire story on a podcast episode.
And I don't think I've heard your entire story either.
Yeah.
I think I've heard it's in bits.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've been friends for a couple of years now, and we've been to a lot of connect groups. And so little pieces of my story come up at different times.
Yeah, but you've heard mine.
Yes. Yeah, I've heard yours. But so we've been through
a lot of crying.
A lot. We did a lot of crying on your episode. But yeah, so our goal is just really to help you thrive. Help you thrive mentally, emotionally, and physically. And we are doing that this week by talking about finding joy in the little things.
Yes.
Yeah. So right
it's
before
before
we started recording, you said you find joy in doing ridiculous things.
Yes. I do. I do. I know I look very serious and very put together, but I'm not. I'm just pretending. And I do a lot of ridiculous things because that's who I am.
Yeah.
I am ridiculous, y'all. It's hard to believe, but I am. I like to do stupid things, and those stupid things bring me joy. I call me crazy, but I mean, my husband hates my Mexican grito. And my uncles, my drunk uncles love it. I love it. Yeah. And my family loves it, but it sounds ridiculous, and I'm not going to do it either. But there is something about you just letting out a scream or whatever it is out of nowhere just because and scare the hell out of people because it makes you happy and it scares others. But and so for me, that brings me joy because it just like merges from the inside and it's like, it doesn't sound like that. But
it's a very beautiful thing. And it is like a really big thing in Mexican culture.
Yeah, it is.
But it brings you joy. So I know your story.
Does.
If you haven't heard her story, you should go listen to it. I will bookmark it. I said that last episode, but I'm going to bookmark it. But yeah, you had a very scary childhood in a lot of different ways.
Traumatic.
Right.
Yeah.
And coming out of that, you could have turned into a serious, sad, bitter person.
Yes.
But,
Sour Patch.
Yeah, a Sour Patch Kid, like the candy. Like but you don't. You're not. You are playful. And
I am. That's the child in me, y'all. Yeah. That's why I am mature, but I'm also childish.
But not in a like childish,
like in a playful way.
Yeah.
Like I like to, I don't know, like there's little things that bring me joy that I do like I don't know, just dancing or singing out of tune.
Yeah.
Or just, I don't know, like doing cartwheels out of nowhere. I mean, if with my kids, whatever. It's just like those little things that bring me joy, and I feel like everyone has them. They just need to do it more, and I guess, embrace it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one part of and I don't know that you will eventually walk through my course. I have a 6 weeks course.
Yes.
And one of the parts of it is rediscovering what brings you true joy. Right. And so the exercise is about thinking back to when you were a kid and remembering those things that really excited you as a child, right?
Yeah.
That were like, oh my gosh, I could get lost for hours doing X. You know, like those kinds of things that brought you so much joy.
Yeah.
And trying to recreate those in your adult life to give yourself somewhere to get true joy from.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes I have clients who will say, well, I had a shitty childhood and I didn't ever feel any joy. So how am I supposed to do this?
Okay.
And they get stuck there.
Right.
Because they're like, you're telling me to dig back to a place where I don't go. Yeah. And where what you're talking about didn't exist. For them, joy did not exist in their childhood. Like there was not a speck of it. And some of them have way worse childhoods than anyone I know. Like it was awful. And I get it. I can
imagine, yeah.
But so how do you then create joy as an adult when you didn't know joy as a child?
Okay.
I'm curious what your answer is.
I think when I think about what gives me joy is it's like I have small hobbies. Like, for example, I like to read books for fun. And because it brings me joy. And because I love to read and, that brings me joy. Sometimes cooking brings me joy. Because I like to experiment. Sometimes I like to try new recipes. And, and that brings me joy. Sometimes I like to go for a walk. And that brings me joy. It's as cliche this may sound, but I like to look at the sky. I like to look at the trees. I like to look at the birds. I like to look at the plants.
Yeah.
Did you know flowers?
Yeah. Did you know that there's actual science behind that?
Oh, I'm sure there is because there's
because the colors.
Okay.
And I think it's kind of spiritual, kind of biblical, kind of. We're both Christians, so this might sound a little woo-woo, but I believe that God created certain things, certain colors for certain reasons.
Yeah.
And if you are, so in psychology, they say that the color green and the color blue can bring calmness and it can bring down your anxiety levels. Okay. So if you're anxious about a work meeting or you're just worked up about something, if you can look at something green or something blue.
Blue and green are the colors to go, y'all.
Yes, but it naturally brings you some peace and some calm.
Okay, good.
And so you talking about, going out to look at the sky, look at the trees, like there's actual science behind the fact that actually brings you peace.
Like so I think 2 weeks ago, I was having a very stressful week, and that day was just it. I was like, I couldn't even talk. I didn't want to talk to nobody, okay? But my husband was like, you know what? Let's go to the nature trail. And we did. And just being out there, looking at the trees, the plants, God's creation, just the colors, I just felt better. And I feel like that just brought me joy. And I know there's people who don't like nature. You don't have to go on a nature walk. You may get lost. You don't want to do that. Right? We don't want to go out looking for you, okay? But if you like to draw, because that's what you used to like to do as a child. I know that's what I used to do as a child. I used to like to color and draw, and I'm good at it, but that's because I spent a lot of time doing that. That still brings me joy. Sometimes when I go back into painting and I grab my paintbrushes, my canvas and everything, that brings me so much joy. Yeah. It just makes me feel, I guess, alive. It makes me feel like myself. It makes me feel creative.
Yeah.
So it just there's just something about it where I'm like, oh, this feels good to me.
Yeah.
It could be watching a movie, even listening to a song those things can bring you joy. Music can bring you joy. I mean, smells can bring you joy.
Yes.
If it makes you happy to smell your dog who smells like cheese, go ahead and do it.
Right? I know. We call it Frito paws.
We used to have a Chihuahua, and she used to smell like cheese, and my daughter would call her nacho cheese.
Oh, yeah. We have the Chihuahua,
Yeah.
and her little paws get so stinky. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
but yeah, it is about finding joy in finding what brings you joy, right?
Yeah.
Like you had rough times in your childhood, but you still had those things that brought you joy.
Right, yeah.
And sometimes I ask people, because I've worked with people who are victims of child abuse, right? They're adults who experience child abuse as a child. They're child abuse survivors is what I should say. And they'll tell me, like, I never felt joy as a child. And I'm like, okay, but what did you use to escape the chaos?
To
cope.
cope. A healthy coping.
Well, because when you're a child, you have no sense of... There's rarely unhealthy coping for a child. Unless they are severely traumatized or whatever, and they might isolate or they might harm themselves, self-harm. But usually what kids do to cope is drawing, playing, pretend.
Stuffed animal blanket.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you really dig into those things, like, okay, stuffed animal. Yeah. Your stuffed animals brought you joy. Okay, what about the stuffed animals brought you joy? Was it the fact that they were soft and they felt good and you enjoyed cuddling with them? Then that might tell you in your adult life that you might enjoy being close to someone, cuddling up on the couch with a soft blanket. Maybe you cuddle up on the couch with a soft blanket and your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, like that sort of. Okay. Because a stuffed animal, it's soft, right? It feels good. It's cuddly. It gives you a sense of safety. Yeah. So it's like really breaking down what you sought out as a kid, what brought you joy as a kid, and why. Because a lot of times, like, if your favorite thing to do as a kid was play with Barbies, well, you might look a little crazy as a 40-year-old. I mean, to each their own. But
I think I've seen people who collect dolls and I think that's great because if that brings them joy, then that's like, okay, well, more power to you. Because, and I think my husband collects shoes. That brings him joy.
Exactly.
They're expensive. I don't agree with it, but if it makes him happy, then okay. Or I mean, just certain things, whatever brings you joy in a healthy way is approved by us. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it is about figuring out what you enjoy, because like you thoroughly enjoy going to the gym, right? Like
I do.
You like the gym.
That brings me joy.
Yeah. It brings you joy. Going to the gym makes me feel better physically and mentally. Yeah. But it doesn't bring me joy.
To you or to me?
To me. Oh. Yeah. So like I know when I'm not feeling well, when my body has not been feeling right, when I'm kind of depressed, whatever, I know I need to move my body because it will make me feel better. Yeah. So going to the gym will make me feel better, but it doesn't bring me joy. And I think there's a big difference there that sometimes people get mixed up. Is like,
I see it.
The difference between it makes me feel better.
Like this is good for you, but it doesn't bring you joy. Just like you eating your vegetables. Yeah. May be good for you, but it may not bring you joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So for me, what brings me joy, is kind of like you getting out in nature. Yeah. Going for walks. And
fresh air.
Yes. But what really brings me joy is doing stuff with my friends. Oh, yeah. Being surrounded by friends. I told you I have
community.
Yes, it's community. I have brothers, and I've always been very close to my brothers. And every Friday we would do family dinner night, either at my brother's house or at my house. And the whole family would come over and we'd cook and we'd hang out and we'd play games and whatever. And then when we all kind of moved away from each other, I lost that connection. And I had friends here, but I wasn't close to them. They were my husband's friends who ended up being my friends too. Okay. But I didn't feel that deep-rooted connection with them. Because with my family, I shared a spiritual connection. I shared a family connection. Blood connection. Yeah. And we were friends. Like, right. I felt like my brother is one of my best friends. Like, we are that close. And then my sister-in-law, his wife, is one of my best friends. She was my maid of honor. Like, we are very close. So when I moved here, I lost all that connection. Yeah. And that's when I realized that was my joy center. Like, I have other things that bring me joy, but that was the center of what brought me joy, was feeling connection to people. And it took a long time, and
it does take a long time to build connections, build relationships, especially I think it's easier for children to make friends than it is for adults.
Because we put up our walls.
Exactly, right? Because we're guarded. We're more like, no one wants to show their soft side. You know, no one wants to really show who they are, because everyone feels judged. Everyone feels like I guess they will be misunderstood, or they just can't be themselves, or they have to be mature grown adults, you know?
Yeah. And it wasn't until I met you guys at Honest Connect Group. Honest Connect Group was the third Connect Group that I'd gone to. And it was the first time that I felt real, genuine connection to someone outside of my family and my church friends from back home. I can relate
to that.
Yeah. And that's kind of when I realized, I think I met you guys right after I stopped drinking. I stopped drinking in August, and I met y'all at the beginning of the next year.
2021. I think it was October of 2021.
Okay.
Or November. Okay. It was around that time. Yeah. It was in the fall.
Yeah, because I met America and Tracy in March, in the spring.
Okay. Was it church? Okay.
Yeah. They had a Connect Group together. So I met them. And then it was a few months, and then I went to Anna's, because I think hers was in the fall. Okay. And I started late. I started her group late. So it would have been like late fall of 2021. But yeah, it was then that I realized that I had gotten sober. So I had stopped drinking. Okay. I started drinking really heavily after my stepson died. And we were drinking all the time. Like, all the time. And every time I've had someone die in my family, I've always had my family around to help me through it. Right. My stepson died March 13th of 2020. It was literally the day the world shut down in Texas. Yeah. It was like, that was the day that they told us that the kids weren't going back from spring break. Yeah. That was like, that was the day the crazy started. Yeah. And
everyone started panicking.
Yes. Yeah. And I came home and told my daughter that her brother had died. And then I called my brother. And I think I had called my brother before I told my daughter. And so telling my brother really made it real. And then I told my daughter. And when I had to tell my daughter that my first fiance passed away, I told her.
How old was she when your fiance passed away?
It was 2 weeks before her 4th birthday.
Oh, yeah.
But she's super mature and like.
Did she comprehend death? Because children at that stage are like,
She knew that he wasn't coming back.
Okay, yeah.
But at that age, kids don't understand permanency. No, so she re-grieved him at 5. When her brain finally hit that barrier.
He's not coming back.
She re-grieved him. Oh. And so I had to put her back in therapy. And so it was really hard for her.
And what did you do? What kind of therapy did she?
She did play therapy.
Okay.
Yeah, she did play therapy at Texas Tech because I was a student at Tech. And so she did play therapy. And so, but after I told her about my fiance, we were alone in my bedroom. But when we walked out into a house full of people because I had friends and family living with me.
I think that can be a lot, right?
Well, it was, but it was after my stepson died, I realized that was what I had always, that's kind of when I realized that I needed community.
Yeah.
And that community brought me joy, even in the deepest, darkest, saddest of places. And when I walked out of her room after telling her that her brother died, and I walked out and it was just my husband in here, and I am thankful for my husband. I love my husband, but coming out to just him and realizing that he had to help both of us was daunting. And I was like, how the hell am I going to make it through this with just the three of us here? Because when Russ died, it was my brother, my sister-in-law, Russ's parents, Russ's aunts and uncles, Russ's brothers, my aunts and uncles. When he was in the hospital, we had 35 to 40 people in the tiny waiting room 24 hours a day. Yeah. All of my aunts and uncles came up. My cousins would come up in shifts. Like, we had friends in there. And when Jeremiah died, I couldn't figure out how to process that alone. It was so hard. And then my brother was like, we were supposed to drive to go see my brother that weekend. Okay. And my brother said, okay, well, just let me know if you're still coming. I really don't think you should be by yourself.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, my sister-in-law, she's always got my back. She's like, we're on our way.
We got you. Stay put. Help is on the way.
Yeah, that's exactly what she said. She said, help is on the way. And then she sent me the meme of Karen with the boxed wine from Will and Grace. And she says, I brought the juice boxes. And that is literally like, we just hung out and we handled my stepson's death like we always had, right? Like that was, but then they left and I was alone.
No, yeah.
And it was the pandemic. So I couldn't hang out with anybody. Mm-hmm. I hadn't yet met you guys. No. So I didn't really have super close friends that I could be like, hey, I am struggling and I need you to come over.
Yeah, like today's a hard day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was FaceTime, everything. We had to just video chat with people. And so I would sit in my backyard with a bottle of vodka or a bottle of wine and just video chat whoever would answer while I sat in my grass and got drunk. Like, that's how bad it was.
Wow. Now that you mentioned that, okay, so I had a miscarriage February, days before my daughter's birthday. And I was, and this was like before the pandemic. It was 2020, February of 2020. And I had like a glass of wine once when my husband was cooking some steak and, wine, steak, whatever. And that's when I started drinking the wine and I was like, oh, okay, well, it feels good. And, but I was really depressed. I was really sad. And then weeks later went by, spring break happened, then the pandemic happened, and then that's when I realized I was drinking I was drinking a lot of red wine. And I found this out when I went to my garage and I realized that I had all the bottles there next to my recycling bin, and I counted them and there were 7 bottles, and I'm like, did I drink these like a week or a day? And I didn't even know. I couldn't tell you if it was like, but I was like, what if I was coping from
the miscarriage
and the sadness, and that's why I was drinking. And I didn't know. I didn't realize it because it sneaks up on you.
It does.
So when you mentioned that you drinking wine in your backyard by yourself, it's just like, okay, I know I was drinking and I mentioned it to you before.
Yeah.
But I guess right now I realize that maybe that's why I was also drinking so much, not just because of the stress and anxiety of what was happening around the world.
Yeah.
But it was also because I was dealing with my little loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, it creeps up on us.
It's subconsciously. Yeah. It's just, you're doing it and you don't realize
it. Because if you weren't drinking, you would have had to sit on the couch and face the fact that you had lost your baby.
Yeah.
Same for me. If I was not drinking, I would have had to deal with the impossible emotions of having lost my stepson.
Yeah.
Because I helped raise my stepson from when he was little. Because I knew him long before my daughter was ever born. Like, I used to help take care of him. And so he was more than a stepson. Like, he was like mine. And it was, I've lost fiance 6 weeks before our wedding, my dad when I was 8, all my grandparents are gone, multiple aunts and uncles are gone, I've lost cousins, I've lost my best friend to suicide when we were in high school. Like, wow. I've lost people. That one floored me. Like, I was distraught. I
think losing a son, whether it's a stepson or stepdaughter, I think children or just, it's a different kind of loss.
Yeah. You're not supposed to bury your babies. Like, you're not supposed to lose your babies. Same with miscarriages and unwanted abortions like that. I feel like anytime something is taken from you like that,
it's like you lose a part of you.
You do. Yeah. And looking back now, what I was craving, what I needed, and what I was soothing with alcohol was community. And that's what brings me joy. Because it sounds counterintuitive, but whenever you are in the worst situation of your life, what you need is joy. Not just temporary happiness, not just temporary relief, but true joy.
Yeah, like a constant thing. Yeah.
And I got judged a lot for it, but when my fiance died, I was completely surrounded by friends. Like, I had a few friends move into my house. Like, we went out. If it wouldn't have been for my cousin, 2 of my cousins, craziest girls on the planet. I freaking love them to death.
We all have crazy cousins.
Yes. But if it was, and they came at different times. Like,
that's good.
One cousin was there in the immediate aftermath of Russ dying. And then I don't know what happened. I think she moved. And it was like, they passed the baton and her sister came in.
Your turn.
Yeah.
Your turn.
And if it was not for them, like, they would force me to get dressed, get pretty, go out, go karaoke, go whatever. Like, they made sure I did not stay home sad and alone. And then I had my friend who was my home sad and alone friend. And
I guess the way that I went through that season was I didn't have anyone, and I mean, one of my cousins came from out of town, and he was really sweet, and his wife too, but other than that, I don't think I didn't want anyone around me because I guess I didn't want to cause pity.
Yeah,
I didn't want to be like feeling like I'm someone's sad burden.
Yeah.
So I didn't get any calls or anything like that checking up on me. But I guess I was also the type that I was just,
suffer in silence type.
Yeah. Like, I would be like, no, I'm okay. I mean, days after my miscarriage, I still went to volunteer in church with the children's center or whatever. And I just kept on with life because I felt like that's the way that you just do things. Things happen and you just have to move on. And you don't stop to realize that you need to stop and feel your emotions and you just, I guess, I dwell in them or feel them and then just release them.
Yeah.
So they're not stuck in you and you're not just suppressing them.
Yeah.
With alcohol or drugs or other things. And I that was my way of coping. Everybody copes differently, but for me, I was just like, no, I wouldn't really talk about it because I guess I didn't want to be like, oh, I had a miscarriage, and I didn't want, like I said, the pity.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't taught, or you just don't know what to do in situations like these, right? So when I think I told some of my friends, but I don't think I told everyone, and I didn't have that community also. So I did feel like that sadness. I did feel like it took me a while, to be honest, to just be able to think about my loss without crying.
Yeah.
Because then I would watch movies or hear people talk about it, and I would tear up because I was still dealing with it.
Oh, yeah.
But then once I would go around and hear other women, and we would share stories like this, and I was finally able to talk about it without, tearing up. That doesn't mean I didn't care anymore, or I wasn't, because losing something or a child or any, it's still hurtful, and it's still,
it's still painful. Yeah.
It was just more like, okay, I'm better now. Like this, like, I know that, my baby is not here with me, but he is in heaven with God watching, and,
Yeah.
And one day I'll get to see my baby,
Yeah.
But and I guess to me, I was just like, I'm okay now. Like I don't think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you ever go through a time where you were feeling better and you didn't think about your son like that anymore?
Yeah.
And you were.
Yeah. And I think it's important, like you do, that's part of the grief cycle, right?
Okay.
Like you get to a place of acceptance. Like that's the final stage of the grief cycle is acceptance. And the grief cycle isn't circular. Like it's not cyclical. You don't go like point A, point B, point C. It's not perfect, right? Like everybody doesn't just go, okay, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3.
So
no.
It happens differently for everyone? Okay.
Yeah. And some people, it's like anger, bargaining, denial. Of course, I'm going to forget the other one.
Does anyone
and then acceptance
ever go from like acceptance to then denial and then anger, or it's just...
If they haven't fully accepted it.
Okay.
You can surface accept it, pretend accept it, which is usually what happens when you cope with drugs, alcohol, or behaviors. Is you have a faux acceptance, right? Like you're like, oh yeah, he's in a better place. It's all good. I'm much better now. Yeah. But then you stop drinking or you stop using and it all comes crashing back.
Oh, now you're alone.
Yes. Yeah. You no longer have that substance to hide the fact that you have not actually dealt with it. Wow. And so, like, think of it this way. Like, if you are dealing with the loss of a loved one, you go out and you start using heroin or smoking weed or drinking wine to deal with it, right? So you start to feel better and you're like, okay, well, it's not as painful anymore. Like he's in a better place, whatever. But then you get sober. Yeah. And really all you're doing when you're drinking, using, numbing with social media, numbing with food, like you're just pushing everything down.
Right.
And not actually processing it. So it's almost like squishing it down to the bottom of your esophagus with like a plunger, right? So if you digest the food naturally, we have certain mechanisms in our mouth, like that activate the saliva. The saliva activates the sphincter. The sphincter closes on your windpipe and opens on your esophagus so that the food will go down so it doesn't go down your windpipe and into your lungs. Wow. And then that activates the muscles and they churn and they pull the food down.
You're teaching me a lot. I'm like, Teresa, where are you getting all this?
This is what happens when you have 1,000,000 degrees and like they're in all different areas. I have a science degree. I
have a smart friend.
Yeah. But then that activates this lower sphincter to open to let the food into your stomach, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But if you don't process the food properly, let's say you just get the food and you put it in a syringe and you just inject it into the back of their throat and it just shoots down into their esophagus.
Which is done.
Yeah. Exactly. It's stupid. Why would you do that?
Well, they do that.
Yeah.
But we're not professionals here. We're just...
Yeah. But then it doesn't activate the saliva glands, right? It doesn't by chewing. It doesn't. Yeah. You're not smelling the food because also smelling food also activates the saliva.
That's crazy because I saw that on a reel, guys.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I learned everything there. Okay. So that's right. That's my source. Okay.
Yeah.
So that it's not the same thing. Drinking a smoothie of fruits and vegetables is not the same thing as eating the fruits and vegetables. And when I heard that, and I was like, well, I love to juice, I love to.
But it's not the same.
It's not the same thing because your eyes have to see the fruits and vegetables. Your nose has to smell them. Mm-hmm. Your mouth has to taste them.
And your teeth have to chew them. The chewing activates the calories to help digest the sugars.
Because when you just drink the smoothie, you're just swallowing it. So the saliva is not getting mixed in with everything. So then it doesn't process and all the nutrients don't go to, I guess, where they should because you're not eating it correctly, which is crazy, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's a science behind the way you eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a science.
It is, yes. And so, like, imagine you just shoved all that down there and now it's just stuck in your esophagus, right? Because none of the processes to digest it are working, so it's just stuck here.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna come up. I said this earlier. What goes down must come up. Like, it's gonna come up if it can't go down into your stomach and be processed, like, and flushed out. Like, it's gonna come back up. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with emotions. If we don't process them correctly, we don't go through them. They don't go through us. And we don't come out on the other side healed. Yeah. Instead, it just stays inside us. And eventually it is going to come out.
A human body just carry? We're not built for that.
Yeah. No.
We're not. We're like, if you keep on pouring and pouring and pouring, you're going to be a ticking bomb and then you're going to explode. You're going to have anger issues. Mm-hmm. You're going to cope in unhealthy ways.
Yeah. I always say that school shootings, the problem is not guns. It is mental health. And the fact that we don't pay attention to it.
Here's the thing. I work with toddlers and there's a lot that I have learned from them and working around them, and as I learned so much about them as much as I learned about myself. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I love that's helped me is learning that you have to self-regulate your emotions. Mm-hmm. And because what happens when a toddler doesn't regulate their emotions?
They throw a temper tantrum.
They throw a fit and they're emotional ticking bombs. Yeah. So imagine us as adults.
Yeah.
We are different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're ticking time bombs too because we are constantly working, momming, dadding. Yeah. Everything is going out.
Responsibilities, stress.
Yes. Everything is going out of us.
To-do list.
All of our energy, shopping, laundry, work, provide, cooking.
Babysitter.
Yes. All those are all outputs. Jobs. Yeah. Yes.
Or having to being a caregiver.
Yeah.
Like when you take care of a sick family member, it also takes a toll on you.
Yeah. That's what I went through with my mom.
Also, when you work in the health
industry.
The medical industry. It's like that. We're all emotional creatures. So one thing I've learned is that you need to be able to self-regulate those emotions. From a young age, toddlers need to be taught about their emotions, because if not, they become adults, teenagers who don't know how to self-regulate.
Yeah.
And that is bad.
Yeah. No, it really is. And so I kind of went through that with my mom when she was sick and I was having to, drive back and forth to take care of her. I had to really hold on to, cling to the things that bring me joy.
Yeah.
And those things, like I said, were our community, being outside and just relaxing, having moments of peace by myself. And those are the things that really replenish me and refresh me and recharge me. And I can go through war.
Yeah.
And come out, do one of those 3 things and be ready to go back. But we don't teach people.
No.
We don't teach toddlers, because if you think about it, toddlers are a lot like adults in that they are constantly, they're being inundated, just constantly input of stimuli, right? Because everything is new for a toddler.
Yeah, it overstimulates them.
Yeah, and you're asking them to learn.
Yeah.
And do and color and this and that, and they're at daycare or they're at preschool and and it's just constant for them too. But if we could teach them to take a minute and turn off that switch and bring in something, that brings them peace and joy. Yeah. Then they could take that into adulthood. Yeah. But we're too busy teaching them math, colors, whatever, letters. I don't know what you teach your 2-year-olds, but I remembered to say
so one thing I learned is when they get overstimulated or they're having a hard time self-regulating is just sometimes it's sitting with them.
Yeah.
In the calm corner, because there's nothing you can say to them because they're screaming. They're they're not in the they're not. You can't work with them right now. All you can do is sit next to them to let them know they are not alone in those feelings. And hey, I'm here for whenever you're done, you're ready. Yeah. It's okay. I'm here next to you.
Yeah, because you're validating the fact that they feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, because they're big emotions. Yeah. We all have them. So that's community, and then the child feels safe, and then they can go on with their next task or whatever. And that's very important, because sometimes we also adults, when we go through hard moments, we don't want, I guess, we just want someone to sit with us, to just be there, and not to advise us or anything, or just to be there. And I think that's what happened to you. You just wanted someone to be there when you lost your son. Yeah. And and that's very important, community. Yeah. And yeah.
Yep. So what would you say are some ways that people can figure out what brings them joy?
I think I think everyone is different. What may bring me joy may bring stress to someone else, because they're not me. Everyone's different. Yeah. But I feel like if you enjoy watching the news, that brings you joy. That news brings me stress. I don't watch the news.
I don't like watching the news. I don't watch the news ever. No.
But if reading the newspaper in the morning, drinking your coffee brings you joy, I say you do it. Yeah. If you like to water your plants because that brings you joy, go ahead and do it. If you like to walk your dog because that brings you joy, do it. Yeah. If you buying yourself a shirt or something every week brings you joy without you having an addiction to shopping, then you do it. Yeah. I feel like if you eating one candy, and you're able to, and if it brings you joy, then go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Writing can bring you joy,
Mm-hmm.
and that can also be a good way to let it out.
Yeah.
That can also be like
writing's a good
therapy.
one. Yeah.
So I feel like if you like to take pictures and that brings you joy, or one thing that brings me joy too is riding my bike.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
I love riding my bike.
Yeah.
And that's something I used to like doing as a child.
Yeah.
I used to use one of like my uncle's bikes.
Riding a bike brings me anxiety.
No.
I am
okay,
so
then
clumsy.
you're not. You can't go riding bikes with me.
My child will go ride bikes with you all day long. Me gives me such anxiety. Okay. Yeah.
Good
so that's a good example. Like it brings you joy, but not me. And so like if I'm having a bad day, I don't want to go ride a bike. Yeah. It's going to make it worse.
You know, something that used to bring me joy when I used to live in Chicago was on my days off, I would get an all-day pass for public transportation, which was the subway, the CTA, or the whatever.
Yeah.
A train, sub, I said it all.
Yeah.
And I would get an all-day pass, and I would just get lost in the city. I would walk. I would just walk.
Yeah.
And I would look at the beautiful buildings, the architecture, the flowers, the gardens, and I would find like the cutest little houses. And I would get lost. I would find the coolest little holes in the walls with like just things to see, and I loved it. That brought me joy. I miss those days.
Oh, I love that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. If you enjoy just walking around, just go to a small town. Go vintage shopping. There's a lot of them in Texas.
Yeah.
And something that brings me joy is driving.
Oh, yeah.
Not in the city.
No, not here, but out in the country or like a quiet road. Yes. Yeah, I do miss that. I do.
Yeah. Because I listen to music. Yeah. Music that I don't get to listen to all the time. Mm-hmm. So those
I like to roll down the windows and like, when I'm back home in Lubbock, I do that because there's a lot of back dirt roads and like back roads and just seeing the open space and Yeah. I think a good thermometer for whether or not it is something that you can turn to as a coping mechanism that isn't going to be problematic is if it brings you peace.
Yeah.
And you feel energized after you do it, right? Like
you feel recharged. You
recharged. Yeah.
Renewed and refreshed.
Yeah. And like you're ready to go back out and tackle more. Because otherwise, if it leaves you feeling ashamed or depleted or tired, more exhausted than you were to begin with, or guilty, then maybe you need to find something else.
A different thing that brings you joy.
Yeah. And it can be the little things.
The little things. Like my students bringing me dandelions.
Yeah.
Outside when they're having recess, they find a dandelion and they give me one. That brings me joy.
That's so sweet. I used to take them to my dad.
It's those little things, guys. It does not cost a lot. It does not. It's those little things. Yeah. Or like when my kids come up to me and they give me a big tight hug that lasts for more than a minute. That brings me joy. And it's always those things.
Yeah.
All
right. Well, that was episode 2. Yay! We did it! All right, guys. Thank you for listening, and we hope you got some wisdom from this. I hope you got her.
I'm just here to talk.
No, we are the dynamic duo. It is just a crapshoot as to what we're going to say around here. So keep coming back. But yeah, we hope you got some wisdom, and I hope we helped you see how to find joy in the little things in life and where to look for those. And let us know what brings you joy and what are those little things, or if you need help finding those little things, we will help you. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Reach out to us. Rosie and I are both going to be doing one-on-one coaching sessions. And this is one of the things that we can help you with. We can help you figure out what brings you joy. We can help you set goals to incorporate that joy into your everyday life and start building a life that you love, where you are thriving mind, body, and soul.
Yes.
All right. Our contact info will be in the show notes. And make sure you like and subscribe and watch the next video.